Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear,
business consultant.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.
Welcome. I'm Jay Shear with Jay Shear Business Consulting. We build solid foundations for service-based businesses to grow and scale and achieve the results and success they deserve. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Albert Einstein said, anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Ralph Nader said, your best teacher is your last mistake. Well, on this episode, we're going to talk about going from mess to success, how to rise when you fail, and how to survive and even thrive. Our guest today is making his second appearance on the podcast. By the way, check out episode 28 for our first interview. This is one you do not want to miss. He's a husband and father to three, a leadership expert, a #1 Amazon and Wall Street Journal bestselling author, an Inc.com columnist, host of the world's largest leadership podcast, On Leadership with Scott Miller. He's a global keynote speaker, career coach, and he currently serves as Franklin Covey's senior advisor on thought leadership. Please welcome the man who knows a thing or two about igniting your genius, Scott Miller. Scott.
And a complete mess. Jay, thank you for the invitation to rejoin you today. I'm honored that you've turned your spotlight back on me. Truly, thank you for your abundance. I'm grateful to be here.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled that you're here. You shined so bright on the first episode. How can I not have you back? And, it's amazing. Every time I dig more into your world, you just seem to accomplish more and more. There seems to be more accolades added to that list. So the next time you come on the show, it's probably going to take 30 minutes just to read all the things that you've done. So
next time, just say, welcome to my friend Scott Miller. That'll be enough.
There you go. Well, I got to tell you, this is going to be a great conversation. So let's jump right in. And since you were here in early July of last year, there's been some exciting changes in your world. I mean, you and your family have moved. You have a brand new book that we're going to be talking about. You have a new title at Franklin Covey. So share with us a bit about what's been going on since we last met.
And I have a lot less money as well, too. So thanks for the setup. So after 25 years of being an associate of the Franklin Covey Company, 10 of which I was the Chief Marketing Officer or the EVP of Thought Leadership, I retired, so to speak, very amicably with the CEO and the board. I still am an advisor and a consultant to the firm. I host their podcast, as you mentioned, and I still lead their thought leadership and book strategy, but now as an outside advisor, not as a seated executive officer, which was a delightful transition out because that allowed me to go do some things that I couldn't do as a public officer in a company. And so now I'm venturing into some career coaching. I'm writing 3 books a year right now. I'm speaking a lot. I'm podcasting, and so I've been delighted to repair some of the burnout that had gone on. From a nearly 30-year career between Disney and Franklin Covey, both which were amazing journeys. And I'm in some demand, which is nice. My kids think I'm cool. My wife is annoyed that I'm working from home, but I can solve that in other ways. But like you say off camera, my blessings are far outweighing any kind of downside, and I'm very grateful for all that we have and the opportunities that people like you are affording me. And honestly, to that I'm indebted and grateful.
Well, I'm grateful as well, and we are always in a state of change, and it's good to see that you are continuing to do the things that you want to do, that bring you fulfillment, that bring you joy, and allow you to share your insights and your expertise with the rest of the world. So keep at it. It's been a joy to watch. So I'm curious, what is something that you believed about yourself early on, Scott, that you found out wasn't true?
I'm silent. I'm still here. For those guests that are listening, I'm thinking about that. So it's a profound question that I have asked others. No one has ever asked that question of me. I think I'm smarter than I was led to believe I was. I'm not a genius. I don't have a Ivy League education, but I've read a lot. I've studied, I've listened a lot to other people. And I think I have more valuable information to share with others than maybe I thought I did, mainly through a very successful career and a lot of reading and some great appointments professionally. And so it's a deep question. I mean to take my time. I think maybe not smarter, just maybe I feel like I have more value to offer others than I thought I did. Maybe I should say that. Is I feel like through my lessons, through my messes, I can teach a lot of people how to achieve success faster and easier if they'll listen and learn from a lot of my messes. So I think that's what I would say is I have more to offer than maybe I thought I did to others.
That's a perfect response, and it's a great way to set up the rest of our conversation. And I wanted that to be our first question, Scott.
That was a deep question. No one has asked me that question.
Well, I'm glad that I'm glad that it wasn't an off the cuff type of response, one that you really had to think about, because it's an important one. Because, as you know, in having conversations and interviewing so many amazing people, we find that the stories that we tell ourselves, whether it's negative thinking, whether it's what we believed about ourselves early on, that we had to work very hard on overcoming those stories, that's where breakthroughs happen, right? And that once we've identified that and we can move past that, there is nothing that we can't accomplish. So thank you. Thank you for taking a couple moments to share that with us. So I would love to dig right into your latest book, Marketing Mess to Brand Success. And in addition to the book, there is an accompanying card deck, marketing challenge cards, which is a super cool idea. I love this.
Thank you.
Just makes it so tangible and so palatable and actionable. So what I thought we would do, because this book is filled with so much incredible insight, this is really all about lessons learned. And these are your lessons, right? Which makes it even more meaningful. And so what I would like to be able to do first is for you to share with us what the experience was like bringing this book to life, because it's the second book in the Mess series. So share that with us, what the process was like and why you decided now was the right time to bring this book out.
Thank you for asking. So the first book, as you mentioned, was Management Mess to Leadership Success. In that book, which by the way was owned by the Franklin Covey company. I don't own that first book. I wrote the book, but it's Franklin Covey's intellectual property. I took 30 of their challenges, of their leadership content, and I wrote a story about how I had struggled with it. It's very, very raw, real book full of some, blush-worthy mistakes that I made. But, I was sort of operating under their umbrella and their brand, and they own all that content. And I'm delighted that I had a chance to write that book. When I left the firm, the board of directors and the CEO granted me a license to the Mess to Success brand, which allowed me to now write new books on my own. I own the content. It's all mine. So really, Marketing Mess is my third book, but it's the first book that I've written that really is my own. I own it. And so for this one, it was a little more liberating. I didn't have someone else's intellectual property as my architecture. I had to create my own. So these 30 challenges are all my own. And so I really dug deep in my 25-year sales and marketing career, 10 of which almost were as CMO. And I talked a lot about the common mistakes that marketers make, whether you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, founder, work in a large company, mid-sized company. I really speak a lot about the relationship between sales and marketing and how some of the arrogance needs to be replaced by humility and vulnerability and owning your mess. So for me, writing this book was really, in many ways, although it's my third book, it's my first book.
So talk about the structure of the book itself and how you've laid it out.
Yeah.
And just so everyone can have a good mental picture of that as we dig into it a bit deeper.
Yeah, so let's just call it out, right? I'm not Jim Collins. These are not built to last, good to great level books. I did not write War and Peace. I write easy, fast-paced, breezy books, purposefully, because as I've been in the book business for 25 years, I know that most business books are twice as long as they need to be because authors are trying to meet a word count foisted on them by their editor, which is why most of business books aren't even read the last half, right? Because most authors only have the first half to give. So I write books that are fast, one big idea per chapter. The chapters are like maybe 3 or 4 pages long, and they're very actionable. They're funny. They're raw. You get to know my personality. Most people say the same thing. I feel like I know you after reading your book, and that makes me feel validated that I wrote it well. These 30 challenges are based on the biggest mistakes that I have made in my own career or I see other people make. And not all of them are my own messes, but in most of them, I propose an idea, a principle, a concept. I talk about how easy it is to violate that through a story. And then I share some key ways that you can build the strength, the stamina intellectually, socially, emotionally to avoid those messes. So everything is kind of presenting it as a mess and talking about how it can become a success in your career. And I think this book is as much a leadership book as it is a marketing book. People tell me, I've got 250 ambassadors across social media reading it, and they're saying, Scott, this really is a sales book. It's a leadership book. It's a marketing book. But I actually think that sales leaders might like this book even more so than marketing leaders do, because I actually take marketing to task on a couple of occasions around how they've got to be aligned with sales. I think the biggest cancer in companies, small, medium, or large, is gossip. The biggest cancer in organizations. And the second biggest issue is the competition, the finger pointing, the blaming between sales and marketing. And I speak and I write a lot about how marketing needs, in my opinion, to be aligned to sales. And I share some examples of why that's so important. I think too often marketers hide behind impressions, likes, brand equity. These are important concepts, but you can't staple brand equity to the back of a bank deposit slip and fund payroll on it. And as an entrepreneur, I have employees, I have payroll taxes. At the end of the day, brand equity is an important thing to earn and maintain. Marketing needs to see themselves in the same boat as sales and rowing with them, for them, not against them. And that's from a CMO.
Yeah, very, very powerful points there. And for all of you that are watching or listening, make sure that you are taking notes here, because Scott is just filled with amazing wisdom. You're absolutely going to want to get a copy of this book when it comes out, which we're going to put the link in the show notes. But as we're going along, think about what Scott's saying and think about how this applies to you and your business and what you can do to turn those messes into successes. And we're going to dig into a few of these challenges more deeply here right now. But Scott, I will absolutely echo your point in that this book crosses the spectrum of more than marketing, right? It's a focus on marketing, but it absolutely goes across the board into all areas of business and certainly leadership and sales. I saw that immediately. And I really look at this as a career guide for marketing, right? I mean, it provides you the tools, but it's a guide, which is quite amazing. So I went through, and I mentioned this to you before the cameras were rolling, but I went through and there were so many of these challenges that I could relate to that just started to bring up, those stories from my past about the messes. But there were 5 of them that I just would really like to hone in on. And the very first one is challenge number 1. And I'm going off of the cards that Scott has available as well. And it's the customer stupid. Talk to this one for us.
I think one of my favorite books of all times was written by Gordon McKenzie. He wrote a book called Orbiting the Giant Hairball. It's an amazing book 20 years ago, where it basically is the story of how shoebox greeting cards got its start as sort of the avant-garde division of the more conservative Hallmark greeting cards. And how Gordon McKenzie, the author who's now passed, talked about how Hallmark was the hairball and shoebox greeting cards had to orbit the hairball, like dip in for resources, but I get sucked in. And I think in most organizations, even small, independent, entrepreneurial companies, we get so focused on our needs, our mission, our purpose, that we forget that everything needs to be about the customer, their needs, their purpose, their goals. I mentioned the sign of a great salesperson is not just do they know their monthly goal, their quarterly revenue goal, their annual goal. They can tell you their client's quarterly revenue goal because they're so focused on helping the clients achieve their success. So this idea about it's about the customer, stupid, is just a reminder of how easy it is for competent, highly talented marketers, owners, leaders to get so focused on our company, our needs, that we lose track of what our clients' needs are. And I share a political corollary to it's the economy, stupid, right? From the 1992 Clinton Gore campaign against the incumbent George H.W. Bush at the time. And that's why I call it's the customer, stupid, because well-intended, hardworking marketers and leaders so easily get sucked into our own corporate speak with finance and operations and supply chain and brand and all that. And it's a marketer's job to be the kind of the calm in the storm, to be the reasonable voice, to keep reorienting everyone back to the customer's needs. And I share some vulnerable stories around how I didn't always do that. And I was often leading up in the organization when I should have been obsessively focused on keeping my ear to the ground what customers needed. That marketing needs to be that same sane voice in the room, even more so than sales.
Yeah, so very powerful. And I am sure that many of us can relate to that situation.
Yeah.
And we find if we're not paying attention to it, if we're not aware enough, we find that the distance between us as an organization and our customer starts to widen. We need to get back to closing that gap because we're partners in this, right? We need to be aligned. So very, very powerful one.
Jay, just a quick build on that.
Please.
Your listeners, they might be the problem. When is the last time one of your listeners, whether you're the founder, you're the owner, you're the leader, you might be the hairball? Well-intended. And so you've got to be self-aware. What am I doing to suck everybody inward? And how do I keep the machine going, right? I get that. Mm-hmm. How do I make sure that I am the light, not the judge? I'm the model, not the critic. And it may be that as the leader, you might need to protect your team from yourself sometimes by recognizing when you all feel like we are too inwardly focused. If anybody feels that, everyone here is empowered to pull the metaphorical, bus cord or train cord, and let's call each other out. Let's make sure that we are spending the appropriate amount of time focused on the customer, including if that means that you need to call me out. That's a great leader that can empower their team to say, if you ever find me in the role of hairball and you're having to orbit me, I need you to tell me.
Absolutely. Another valuable
Bam.
point.
Bam.
Love
Truth
it.
bombs from Scott Jeffrey Miller.
Absolutely. Next one that I've got up that I picked out of these cards is challenge number 3, which is stay close to the cash.
Yeah, this is again, I talk fairly courageously about, I think a lot of people go into marketing because they want to be safe and hide behind brand and SEO and Google Analytics and websites, when marketers are the first to get cut when times are tough, or when someone needs to be the fall guy. It's usually marketing that gets turned around or turned over. So if you're building a career in marketing, or for that matter, IT, finance, operations, supply chain, you name it, you want to be close to the cash, meaning you want to have your contribution closely associated with the cash generating machine. I think I share in the book this horrifying adage, but it's so true, is you're rarely in the room when your career is being decided for you. I have a lot of passion around helping people build their careers. So if you want to have a career in marketing that is phenomenal and insulated against the whims of, of blame and strategy change, you will make sure that you are viewed as someone who is directly contributing to profitable revenue. And so I give some techniques around, you want to make sure you stay close to the cash. It's a metaphor, not just to masquerade, but to have the owner say, oh, no, Scott's not going anywhere because Scott's campaigns are generating profitable revenue. And I don't mean to disparage marketing. I spent the bulk of my career as a chief marketing officer of a global public company. And I made sure that the CEO knew I was willing to own revenue just as much as the chief revenue officer. And I left every campaign meeting saying to the CEO, remind me the exact dollar amount you need this marketing campaign to deliver, because that's what we're going to do. And I never pointed the finger. And that's probably what made me one of the longest serving CMOs in the industry, was because I never shied away from revenue responsibility. I always stayed close to the cash.
Love that. The next challenge that I have is challenge number 9, which is don't only do what you know and like best. Oh, this is one that I have definitely been challenged with.
I mean, this is a challenge that everybody faces, right? I think especially marketers, is we tend to gravitate towards those parts of the job we love the most. I think marketers that love billboards do billboards. So those that love social media do social media. Those that love direct mail do direct mail. It's obviously an oversimplification. But the point of the chapter, the challenge, was to recognize that we tend to market the way we like to be marketed to. And that every marketer should be hyper aware of when you are pursuing channels, when you are pursuing mediums that might be scratching an itch, that might give you joy, that might give you meaning in your job, but it might not be the right way to market your firm's product or service. And that you have to be willing to be self-aware enough, mature enough, vulnerable enough to recognize you may not love SEO, you may not love social media, but that's the right way for your medium. And just be adaptable and nimble enough, flexible enough to check yourself when you're falling into the parts of the job that you find validating. And maybe you have to stretch your skill and stretch your competence to make sure that you're aligning the mediums and the channels and the modalities that best serve your product, and not just doing the parts of the job that bring you joy and fulfillment.
So share with us, what is one way that we can check in on that, right? To where we can ensure that we have that self-awareness. Just give us one example, one thing that we could do.
I think it's constantly be willing, Jay, to check your paradigm, check your belief system, check your mindset. Is what I am doing, is this campaign serving my ego? Is it serving my creative juices? Is it having the humility to ask yourself, is direct mail the right way to communicate this? Or should I be adopting a technology that, quite frankly, I'm not comfortable with? Should I be having somebody else run this that might be more adept, more adaptable at running it? Am I steering away from things because I'm scared? I love that word. I'm scared of a ton of stuff. I use it all the time. And I hire people around me that are palpably, noticeably more competent to solve it. And it's not a joke. It's just a common theme now in my company, right? Scott runs with his strengths. We call him out when we think he's wrong. I compliment people with their strengths around me. So I think it's having the confidence to call yourself out. Dr. Covey, who founded the Franklin Covey Company, of course, wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said many profound things, one of which was really effective leaders, effective marketers are more concerned with what is right than being right. And so to answer your question, ask yourself, am I in this because I need to validate my own ego, or I'm too far in it, I couldn't possibly extricate myself? Am I building alternative data and facts to justify why this is a good idea? Or do you have the maturity to say, you know what? This ain't working. And this was my idea. And you know what? I am just barely mature enough to admit this right now in front of you all. So let's all take a step back and let's have open season on what should we do. And I admit, maybe I hung on to this a little too long because my ego was fragile. but I'm willing to, entertain other ideas. There's some good tips in there. Are you more concerned with what is right than being right?
Such powerful wisdom there. So the next challenge is challenge 11, which is define your smallest viable market.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us about this challenge. Why is this so important?
Well, you know me well enough to know that I'm an aggregator, right? I don't know if I've had an original thought in my entire life, other than marrying my wife. I love to aggregate best ideas from other people and hopefully give them credit. There's no question this is from the famous entrepreneur, marketer, leader, Seth Godin, right? Who wrote many books, including This Is Marketing. In fact, Seth endorsed my first book, Management Mess. In his book, This Is Marketing, which I think is the best marketing book ever written, he, in one of his chapters, defines this idea as your smallest viable market. And it basically is, contrarian thinking. He is an iconoclast. He'll tell you that. And that is that most people start with addressing the largest viable market, either because they had a business plan for the small business loan, or they have investors and they're trying to build that there's great momentum. No, not everybody's your customer. Not everybody's going to read your book. Not everybody's going to subscribe to your podcast. That's just delusional. What Seth Godin teaches is, instead of trying to boil the ocean and make everybody your customer, which of course is idiotic, you should do what is unnatural, which is to find your smallest viable market. Who is the first person that should buy your book? Who's the first person that should subscribe to your podcast? Who is your first customer? What is their name? Have you satisfied them? What is their demographic? What is their profile? And then who is your second person and third person, until you build raving fans and you build brand ambassadors and you perfect what problem it is you're solving. You're very clear on what job to be done are you solving, right? As the famous Clayton Christensen wrote about, what is the problem people are hiring you to solve? What itch are you scratching? And so this is easier written about than implemented, right? Because most entrepreneurs, I want everyone to read my book. At the end of the day, Marketing Mess to Brand Success is not a book that's going to sell 10 million copies. There aren't that many marketers out there, or even salespeople for that matter. So it's a tighter book. Now, Job Mess to Career Success, it's next. It's a broader book. Relationship Mess, Communication Mess, those are broader books coming. But this is a discipline that extraordinary marketers put in place, which is they resist the temptation to net fish, casting a net out, and they spearfish. It's a bit macabre, but ask yourself, are you net fishing or are you spearfishing? And if you're looking at your smallest viable market, you're probably holding a spear and not a net.
What a great point. Share with us what happens when we have the belief that everyone is our customer. Anyone is our customer. What happens within our organizations, small business, large business, when we think that way?
Well, the positive side, it's invigorating, it's vision setting, it's inspiring. Who doesn't want to work for someone or with someone that has a big, bold vision for how many lives this can change and impact? That's intoxicating. And it's delusional, because what happens is now you really don't know why customers are hiring your products. You really don't know what are the key problems they're struggling with and how you can perfect your messaging, your channel delivery, your product placement, your SEO to solve that. You're just bouncing around a whole bunch of problems. Now, you might argue that, I don't know, baking soda does more things than, clean your teeth or clean the refrigerator or get rid of, very rare do products have a variety of 10 uses, right? Last time I checked, Crest does one thing, it brushes your teeth. But you run the risk of spreading yourself too thin. You run your risk of another challenge, which is more is not better. Better is better. A lot of us are focused wrongly on quantity, myself included, as opposed to quality. It takes a hyper-disciplined, sanely focused, deliberate leader to say no to great ideas, because there will always be more ideas than there is capacity to execute them. And you've got to be willing to say no to some of your own ideas to make sure that you're fiercely focused on the smallest viable market and the primary problems that your company, organization, product, solution is designed to solve. Otherwise, you'll just be chasing your tail.
Absolutely. And in addition to everything that you just stated and articulated so perfectly, so much wasted dollars are spent on marketing and marketing in the wrong ways when we think that we can connect with everyone with our message. And, there's a statement that I hear time and time again, Scott, when it comes to that minimum viable offering or viable market.
Yeah.
Someone says to me, well, anyone that can fog a mirror is my customer. And it's just one of those statements where I shake my head.
Yeah.
And, but you've done a great job of explaining why it's important to really drill down and identify that smallest viable market. Who is your customer? Who can you serve? And then fulfill those needs, right? Identify the need and go after it.
To take it a step further, well said, Jay. I'm the perfect poster child for this. That's a bad example. I'm like all of you. I host a podcast. Up until recently, I host an iHeartRadio program. I'm writing 3 books this year. I write an Inc. column. I host a bookclub.com monthly, like masterclass style video series coming out next month. I've got agents and publicists calling me wanting to do TV programs. I mean, I say yes to everything because, like everyone, I want to feel valued. I want to feel validated. And my book wasn't number 1 on the Wall Street Journal list. My book wasn't number 1 on the New York Times list. My podcast is solid, but it's not, got tens of millions of subscriptions. And like everybody, I fall into the same trap, right? I want to feel valued. I want to say yes to things. And it's the extraordinary person that steps out and focuses on quality and not quantity. And I struggle with it every single day, right? I have this Inc. column, and Utah Business Magazine asked me to write a column for them. And I say yes and yes and yes. I have to ask myself, why am I saying yes to everything? What's missing in my life? What's missing where I'm saying yes to so many things versus go out and write 1 book a year and go sell 1 million copies because it's the best book ever written? I don't do that for lots of reasons. So I don't mean to be a hypocrite, even though I am. Because I take my own medicine. I am saying no to other projects, and I've got to continue to say no to more so that my work is prolific, but more importantly, enormously high quality.
So it goes to the premise of the book Essentialism.
Or Greg McKeown.
Yeah. Do less, but better.
Yes.
And actually, one of the things that I wanted to find out from you, which we'll address here in a moment, because there's another challenge that actually you just brought up that I wanted to touch on, but hold the thought about what you're saying no to, because we're going to come back around to that. That's an important point. It's important for all of us to remember this. But the next challenge that I had, which is challenge 13, is more is not better. Yeah. Better is better, which you just talked about. Unpack that a bit more so we all understand where you're coming from on that challenge and what should we be doing about that? What should we be focusing on?
This, as I mentioned before, takes, for some of us, uncharacteristic levels of discipline and focus. And I think one of the questions we can ask ourselves is, why are we saying yes to something else, something new, something more? Is it a reflection of our confidence in our current project? Is it a reflection in our own inability to stay focused and stay disciplined? Is it that our creative juices is what validates us so that we get validated because we've got 15 things? Do we see busy as a badge of honor? A lot of us still see busy, me included, as a badge of honor sometimes. And so, I mean, this is not an epiphany. Again, more is not better. Better is better. And especially in marketing, where you are building a brand, you are building brand equity. That is your reputation, your referent credibility. And so I think it requires each of us individually to ask ourselves, When I'm tempted to add something on, what's happening? Am I restless? Am I bored? Am I not confident? Am I jealous? Am I insecure? Or am I just human in 2021 where it's easy to be distracted, right? And I'm craving the invigoration. I think it's different for every person. But it's those that are separating themselves from the rest of us that summon, again, this uncharacteristically high level of discipline to be able to say no to appealing, intoxicating, validating ideas, launches, to say no. Let's say no to that, and let's stay focused on this, because we all know it's more exciting to innovate, develop, create, move new than to stay the course. By the way, Management Mess is still selling really well. It sells, a couple hundred copies a week. Some weeks it sells 2,000 copies a week. But what do? I go on and write 5 more books, as opposed to just, doubling down on that book. Because why? Because of my ego, because of my experience, because I want to be fresh. And I think it really is a differentiator, the person that can say no to intoxicating ideas when you are confident if that same budget, time, attention, discipline could make the main thing the main thing.
This is so relatable, Scott. It truly is. I mean, this, like you, this is an area that I have to contend with and work to manage every day. So with all of that said, what is Scott Miller either adding or eliminating from your life to live a more fulfilled life today?
You know me personally. I just left a 7,300 square foot home with tiered gardens that had to be mowed with 50 stairs. It was this, an entertaining dream come true and a maintenance nightmare. Lovely 100-year-old English estate that my wife and I saved and worked for decades. And we scaled down and just bought a 3,300 foot townhome. No backyard. Now, I have huge guilt because my boys need a backyard. So maybe we'll get a weekend cabin somewhere or something. But I am trying to scale down all the surround sound in my life to spend more time with my boys and my marriage and more time on the Mess to Success brand and not come after every keynote. I got multiple keynote offers this morning. I can't say yes to everything because it's going to come at the expense of the most important things that will provide for me long-term value, that will allow me to provide long-term value as a legacy. So I'm saying no to 10 hours of yard work a week. I'm saying no to keynotes in Saudi Arabia, in Dubai, and in Qatar in the middle of the night because they take, I gave 4 of them last week, and then it wrecked me for the next day. So it took 2 days, right? And so I'm still doing some stuff like that, but I'm more thoughtful to ask myself, why am I saying yes? To your previous question, why are you saying yes? What's missing that you're filling with that yes? I think it kind of goes to your ego, right? Your insecurities. Did your boss never validate you? Did your parents not tell you they loved you or proud of you? I mean, this is an odd conversation, but it's very true. A lot of the things I say yes to is because something's missing in me, and I'm trying to uncover that and fill it.
Wow.
Welcome to therapy with Dr. Jay Shear. Your guest today is Scott Miller.
But talk about self-awareness and really pulling the lens back and trying to understand why I make the decisions that I do, right? Because we are where we are at this very moment because of the decisions and choices that we've made.
Right. And your professional career is always an outgrowth of what's going on in your personal life.
Absolutely.
Right? How many hours you are or aren't working, whether you're fleeing something or running to something. I mean, our careers are a direct reflection of our joy and our gratitude and our satisfaction in our personal lives.
Truth. Absolutely. So I want to switch gears for just a moment. At the time of this interview that we're having right now, you just released episode 150 of On Leadership
Thank you for
with
noticing.
Scott Miller. Absolutely. So first and foremost, congratulations, because that's a big number. And for those that may not be aware, in the podcast space, that's remarkable, right? There are so many choices available, but in most cases, podcasts don't even get past episode 5, much less get into the hundreds. And Scott has interviewed the best of the best and does an amazing job behind the mic. So I know we're putting him on the spot. This is a bit of a different role for him. But Scott, what I wanted to mention is in that episode 150, you interview best-selling author and daughter of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver, Catherine Schwarzenegger Pratt.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, what is the role of forgiveness in your life? And what does it mean to you?
Where did you earn your doctorate?
I'll tell you later.
Oh, that's a compliment, Jay.
Thank you.
The episode is good with Catherine. It's a solid episode, right? I mean, obviously, she doesn't speak about the situation with her father. It was very public, right? With the dissolution of his marriage to Maria Shriver. She doesn't speak about that, but you can tell there's obviously been, a massive correlation to her writing a book around forgiveness. In my own life, what I have learned is you may need to forgive someone who doesn't think they need to be forgiven. And I don't need someone to acknowledge that I'm forgiving them to make that okay. You might violate my trust, and you might never think you have, but I can still successfully, completely forgive you without you agreeing to that or validating that, right? I don't need you involved in my forgiveness of you. And, Catherine's big idea is that forgiveness is a process, and it takes different forms and fashions and speeds for everyone. But forgiveness is a gift you don't just give the other person if and when they think they should be forgiven. It's a gift you give yourself. And in this book that I interview her on, The Gift of Forgiveness, she interviews about 30 people, I think, with like horrifying, unrelatable life situations, mass shootings and bombing. I mean, it's things you hope you never have to forgive someone for. But when you take it away, when you leave the podcast, you realize, if one of the attendees of that church where that young Caucasian man infiltrated that Bible group and under the guise of being a member, then opened fire and killed, I don't know, less than a dozen of them. If people of that group can forgive him, I can forgive a colleague who gossiped about me. I can forgive anything for anyone, right? If people can forgive, if Elizabeth Smart, who I also interviewed, of course, that abduction survivor from Utah that now is a victims' rights advocate and a lovely spokesperson for forgiveness. If she can forgive the man and the woman who sodomized her and raped her continuously and abused her, if she can forgive the despicable acts that were foisted upon her, everyone watching and listening today can forgive people in your life. Forgiveness is the gift you give yourself.
Yes, it is. And I appreciate you
sharing
that. We just did, and it is where it is.
Making me
it
emotional.
Is what it is. But it's bringing tears to my eyes.
It is. It's a good perspective, right?
It is. It's an incredible perspective, and it's important to look at it that way. Yeah. And I'll just share with you, and knowing your career history and the leadership positions that you've been in, I look over my career as well. And Scott, I mean, there are so many times that I look back where I didn't treat someone the way that I should have treated them, when I spoke to someone the way that I shouldn't have spoken to them, when I didn't coach up someone that I should have taken the time to coach up, all of those things that I look back on now and have to look at it and give not only myself forgiveness, right? Yeah. But to create that peace, but also accept my mess, right? Own it and then move on. Learn from it, own it, and carry on.
You're speaking my language, brother.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you
Yeah,
for bringing it to the world.
What a great capstone there, right? Is sometimes the forgiveness is that you're forgiving yourself. And that doesn't mean that perhaps you need to go have an intervention or a huge confession. It's just that, you choose to forgive yourself, acknowledge your contribution, and move forward, move on.
Absolutely. So what overarching message would you like our audience to take away from this conversation?
Yeah, the book is really written about helping people, to quote you, build a great career in marketing. Whether you are a marketing graduate, or your plan is to be a CMO, or you are that person that's wearing sales and marketing and operations because you're wearing all the hats in a small upstart or boutique firm, is that the best marketers are those that check their ego. They're nimble, they're agile, they can change their mind, they can admit their mistakes. One chapter is called Bruise Hard and Heal Fast. The best marketers are those that can laugh at themselves. They can recognize when they are the hairball and call them out. It really all comes down to self-awareness, right? Are you mature enough, nimble enough, agile enough, self-aware enough to be malleable and change with the times, and recognize that marketing's job is to build brand and build brand equity. But ideally, I think it's most vitally to drive revenue. Drive profitable revenue, and be comfortable to call yourself out, to be comfortable to be called out. I mentioned many times in the book where I was called out by the CEO or someone, and I had two choices: dig in and win the battle, or listen and win the war. Meaning, I think too often marketers win the battle at the expense of winning the war. And the war, of course, is the reputation, the relationship, right? Your career. Be willing enough to recognize that I think in so many organizations, the big rub between sales and marketing is toxic, and that readers of this book should be the transition figure that aligns marketing and sales together and admits you're in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. And that takes maybe sometimes a level of self-awareness and maturity that a lot of us, lack. Me first among them.
Me as well. Excellent. So before I ask you my final question, please share with us where we can go to connect with you, consume your content, learn more about your coaching business, and purchase your books and see all the amazing things happening in the world of Scott Miller.
Thank you. Jay, I'm always surprised when someone on social media will say, "Where can I buy your book?" And I'm like, really? Really? You don't know where to buy a book? So you didn't ask that. Obviously the books are all the retailers, right? Digital and in-store. It's in every Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, Target, Walmart, all that, everywhere. The book launches on May 11th, Marketing Mess to Brand Success. You can visit me at scottjeffreymiller.com. All my blogs, all my podcasts, all my Inc. articles are there. All the books are there. You can see videos and chapters. You can order the card deck. You can order the book there. And of course, you can connect to me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. It's kind of hard not to find me these days. My wife says that not as a compliment, right? But the books are on Amazon. And again, Jay, thank you for your abundance. Thanks for building a platform where people like me can come on and talk about the things we're passionate about, and hopefully that someone's career is improved, their brand is improved, the client is improved by reading some of my messes in Marketing Mess to Brand Success.
Oh, and I know they will. And we'll certainly link to all of those in the show notes. So here is my final question to you. How will you measure your life?
Yeah, I'll measure my life by the impact, as I may have mentioned earlier, the impact that I'm having on others' lives. Is not my legacy as in how am I remembered? Who cares? My sons, that matters. But have I helped someone grow their career? Have I helped someone build their self-confidence, their self-esteem, their skills, their 401k? Have I helped someone else fund their college education for their kids? I think how I will measure my life, how my life will be measured is how successful my 3 sons with my wife launched into the world. Success as measured by their happiness and by their contribution to the world. And how successful was I at helping other people achieve how they defined success? That's how I'll measure my life.
Beautifully said. Scott, thank you so very much. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful for you for not
I'm
only
grateful for you.
Well, look, not only the work that you put out, but I want everyone to know, and I want everyone to make a point to realize how impactful your message is, how impactful your work is. And it's changing lives. I can tell you that you've been an inspiration for me. You've helped me in ways that you don't even know about. And I can almost guarantee you that there's a number of others as well that may not come out and say something to you, but you are impacting and changing lives.
Jay,
I know you're living your
me.
legacy.
Just Venmo me, okay? Just send it over. It's okay.
You got it. So thank you again so much for being here today. I appreciate you. And for all of you, yes, sir. And for all of you, thank you so much for watching and listening. And please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Let us know what you thought about this episode. We would appreciate it if maybe you would put 1 to 2 key takeaways and share that with the 2 of us. That would be outstanding. And to enjoy more episodes and to learn how Jay Shear Business Consulting can build a solid foundation for your business, just visit JayShearBusinessConsulting.com. And until next time, keep learning and growing. Pick up your copy of Marketing Mess to Brand Success and the Marketing Challenge Card. You're going to love this. And we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear. Jay Shear.
Business Consultant.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.